A gang fight broke out inside a Melbourne shopping centre. 10 people armed with machetes. One man was rushed to hospital in a serious condition, and hundreds of shoppers ran for cover. The entire centre went into lockdown. It probably even looked like a little bit of a war zone, but it happened right in an Australian food court. And somehow, I'm the threat, you're the threat. Law-abiding gun owners are the problem. Welcome to Australia 2025, where streets are ruled by gang violence, but the government cracks down on farmers and targets shooters. Let's talk about what really happened and why they're hoping you don't ask many questions. Northland Shopping Centre in Preston, Sunday afternoon, only just a few days ago, a peak time during trading. Two rival youth gangs didn't even just bump into each other. They planned to meet. They brought weapons. They brought machetes.
There were screams of knife, there was a machete scene, and then there was people running through the centre here, running into stores to try and protect themselves. And
this, wasn't a bar fight. This definitely is not kids being kids. This was a coordinated, violent attack in a public space. Police say the brawl was an act of retaliation. One man ended up in hospital, seriously injured, and 2 people were arrested. One of those was only just 15 years old. Let that sink in. 15 years old. 8 others are still on the run, so the police are still trying to track these people down. Mothers, children, and workers, they were all trapped inside stores as the centre went into lockdown. You don't need imagination. Well, the footage is already out there. And the media? They covered it like it was pretty much a traffic incident. I wasn't really overly impressed with the media coverage that happened the following few days. There was no national conversation, no crisis meeting, no real outrage. And before I keep going, let me be very clear. This channel has no sponsors. And if you believe in what I'm saying and you want this message to reach more and more Aussies, consider joining as a channel member, or the other options are in the description. That's the only backing that I've got, and it's you, and it makes a huge difference. Now, here is where it actually gets insulting. Let's flip this. Imagine 10. Now, this is just an imaginary YouTube. Everybody, don't get a little bit upset, but just imagine 10 licensed shooters pre-arranged to meet up. Not for violence, just a legal range day. But let's just say one of them had incorrectly stored a bolt or forgot to update a medical form. You think the media would shrug that off? Of course not. But this, a machete fight in a shopping centre?
So what I want to do is reassure the community that this was not just some random thing that happened. It was a pre-organised gang meet-up where that affray has taken place.
Let that sink in. They choose the time. They choose the place, and they brought a prohibited weapon. Or it would be, if the law had caught up. But instead of declaring war on gang networks, the government declares war on people with firearms, people with safes, and people with the correct paperwork. We're being forced through firearm authority health assessments. We're being required to justify our existence in a hobby that has been already more regulated than alcohol, knives, or even cars. But gang violence? They'll get around to that eventually. And by the way, they did announce a machete ban in March of 2025. Premier Jacinta Allen said, machetes are destroying lives, so we will destroy machetes. Strong words, but the actual ban doesn't actually start until September 1, 2025. Well, that's still a couple of months of, amnesty period after that. So right now in May, these things are still legal. And that gang fight, completely within the grey zone of not yet legal machete ownership. So when they say they are doing something, remember this. They're still trying to figure out how to define a machete while gang members are already using them. So let's just not talk about policy for a second. Let's talk about people. Everyday Australians who just went to the shops and ended up locked inside fearing for their lives.
I just see people rushing into my store, telling me to lock the doors and everything. Oh, they were really shaken up and scared. They were just shouting oh, lock the doors, and I just yeah.
That is not drama, that is trauma. A shop assistant trained to fold shirts or scan barcodes and customer service is suddenly thrust into the middle of a gang brawl with knives. This is what happens when our leaders focus on optics over outcomes. It wasn't some theoretical risk. It wasn't about potential threats. It actually happened. And it happened because they weren't ready. Not because they couldn't be, but because they were focused on you and me instead. So what now? The government will tell you, well, we're addressing the issue. We've introduced reforms and we're cracking down, but none of that has stopped machetes in the shopping centres. None of that has helped the families trapped inside Northland. And none of that has held a real offenders accountable in advance. But you'll get a letter if your rifle club paperwork is outdated. So here's exactly what I want you to do. I want you to share this video. Somebody actually needs to call this out. Comment below, do you trust the government to keep you safe? And subscribe, because mainstream media won't ask these questions. Next time somebody says, why do you even need a gun? Ask them, why do teenagers need machetes in food courts? This is Alan here from Benchrest Marksman. I will say it again, louder. We are not the problem. We are the ones following the rules. We are the one passing checks, stronger equipment, safety everything, planning and paying our license fees. And yet we are treated like criminals. While the real criminals walk free with machetes in hand, Australia is changing. And if we don't speak up, they'll silence everybody who sees the truth.